Imagine waking up one day with the uneasy sense that something is missing. The air feels heavy, though nothing in your room has changed. The walls are the same, the morning light pours in through the same window, the clock ticks in its same rhythm. Yet, in some corner of your chest, a hollowness gnaws at you, like a faint echo of something once alive, now forgotten. You tell yourself it's just fatigue, a mood, perhaps hunger, but deep down, you know it is something else. Something you cannot name. Now, picture this. Years ago, you carried dreams so vivid they burned behind your eyelids. You could almost taste them. They felt like destiny itself, waiting to be seized. And yet, without fanfare, without the violence of tragedy, those dreams did not die in one moment. They dissolved quietly, little by little, as though evaporating into the air. No explosion, no grand collapse, just a slow fading until you couldn't even recall the shape of the flame that once guided you. Is this not the cruelest kind of death? The one that happens so silently that you do not even mourn it? Because how do you mourn something you no longer remember losing? We are told to fear failure, rejection, humiliation, but rarely are we told to fear forgetting. Rarely are we warned about the subtle erosion that comes not with disaster, but with routine. The dream doesn't vanish in a single strike hit, is buried under the weight of obligations. The repetition of days, the constant whisper that says, tomorrow. There's still time. You'll get to it eventually, until eventually never comes. Ask yourself, when was the last time you felt that raw, unfiltered fire for something so fierce it made sleep feel unnecessary, so consuming that nothing else mattered? And now, ask yourself, where is it? Where did it go? What if the greatest tragedy is not that dreams are impossible, but that we learn to live without them? And here lies the paradox. Society praises those who are realistic, those who adapt, those who settle, and yet, every great innovation, every revolution, every work of art that shook the world came from someone who refused to abandon a dream. So why is it that the same society that celebrates dreamers in hindsight teaches you, in real time, to suffocate your own? Perhaps it is because a dreaming individual is dangerous, unpredictable, untamed, unwilling to accept the grey monotony handed to them. A dreamer is a threat to the machinery of obedience. And so, rather than crushing your dreams violently, the world prefers to let them die quietly, while convincing you that this is maturity. But is it maturity? Or is it a kind of death in disguise? The strangest part is that most of us will not even notice when it happens. We will still smile, laugh, go to work, pay bills, maybe even achieve milestones others praise. Outwardly, life looks intact. Inwardly, something has vanished. A light we once thought eternal has gone out, and in its place grows a subtle emptiness, the kind that cannot be filled with money, recognition, or distractions. And here is the haunting question. If you no longer remember the dream that once defined you, are you still the same person? Or has a different self taken your place, one who resembles you in body, in habits, but whose spirit is unrecognizable? Perhaps this is why so many feel an unnamed dissatisfaction even when they appear to have it all. They cannot explain it, cannot point to it, because what they have lost was not something tangible, was the pulse of possibility, the intoxication of a dream that once made them alive. So the question, the great question, is this: how many of us are living ghosts, moving through our days, achieving what others applaud, but carrying inside us the quiet funeral of our own forgotten dreams. And if this is true, if the death of dreams is not rare, but common, happening in millions of lives every day, without ceremony, then what does it mean for the future of humanity? What happens when entire generations no longer dream, but only mimic? When imagination is replaced with efficiency? When possibility is traded for predictability? These questions are not meant to comfort you. They are meant to unsettle, to dig at the corners of your mind, to force you into the uncomfortable realization that perhaps your own dreams are not as safe as you believe. Perhaps even now, as you listen, they are quietly slipping away. The silence of that loss should terrify you more than any storm, because a storm at least reminds you you're alive. Silence, however, lulls you into forgetting, and it is from this silence, this unnoticed burial, that the real story begins. The hidden problem and its psychological, philosophical roots. Why do dreams die so quietly? Why do they not go out in fire and thunder, but instead wither in stillness? To understand this, we must peel back layers of psychology, philosophy, and the machinery of society itself. Because your dream's death is not an accident. It is the product of forces working upon you since the day you first learned the word should. Think back to childhood, before the rules set in, before be realistic became the mantra. You lived in a different reality. You imagined without restraint. A stick became a sword, a blanket, a castle, the floor a river of lava. You didn't ask whether your vision was practical. You simply lived inside it. That was the raw spirit of dreaming, untamed, alive, unapologetic. But as you grew, that flame was slowly trimmed. Parents, teachers, peers, institutions, all with good intentions, perhaps began to mold you. They said, you can't be everything you want. They said, the world doesn't work that way. And little by little, you believed them. You stopped playing, stopped pretending, stopped creating for the sake of creation. Carl Jung once wrote that the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parents. Think of that. The dreams your parents abandoned often echo into you, shaping your choices, quietly dictating what feels acceptable. But it doesn't end there. Schools reward obedience, not imagination. They value correct answers, not daring questions. To be a dreamer in such a system is to be a problem. The result? We learn to trade our wild visions for predictable roles. And while society applauds us for adapting, inside, something shrinks. Friedrich Nietzsche warned against this with brutal clarity. He described the last man, a figure who has abandoned all great striving, all grand vision, in exchange for safety, comfort, and predictability. The last man has no dreams left, only pleasures and routines. He is content, but his contentment is hollow. Nietzsche's terrifying prophecy was not about distant centuries, it was about us. We are being taught, slowly, to become last men and women, efficient, obedient, but dreamless. Arthur Schopenhauer, on the other hand, took a darker stance. He believed human desire itself was suffering, that to dream is to invite disappointment, because the will is insatiable. And yet, without dreams, what are we? Just beings existing, enduring, consuming. His pessimism forces us to ask, perhaps the quiet death of our dreams is not only imposed upon us, but also welcomed by us because dreaming is dangerous. To dream is to risk despair. But Viktor Frankl, a survivor of Auschwitz, saw it differently. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he observed that those who endured unimaginable suffering were often those who still clung to some vision of the future, a dream that gave their lives meaning. For Frankl, to lose one's dream was not safety. It was death, without something larger to live for. The human spirit collapses. This tension between Nietzsche's last man, Schopenhauer's weary denial, and Frankl's insistence on meaning reveals the heart of the hidden problem. Dreams die quietly, not because they are trivial, but because they are dangerous. Dangerous to society's order. Dangerous to our fragile comfort. Dangerous because they demand something of us: risk, courage, sacrifice, and most would rather surrender them than endure the terror of pursuing them. And psychology, in its quiet precision, explains the mechanics of this surrender. Cognitive dissonance plays its role. When your life diverges from your dream, you soothe yourself by convincing your mind the dream wasn't important anyway. It was childish. It wasn't realistic. In reality, this is self-deception, a coping mechanism to make the wound of abandonment less painful. But in that deception, the dream is buried. Then comes learned helplessness. Fail once, stumble twice, meet resistance 3 times. The mind begins to whisper, why bother? Psychologist Martin Seligman discovered this in experiments. Subjects who were conditioned to believe their efforts made no difference eventually stopped trying, even when freedom was within reach. How many of us live exactly like this, believing we are trapped, even when the cage door is open? And beneath it all lies fear. Fear of ridicule, fear of scarcity, fear of the unknown. Society amplifies these fears because fearful individuals are compliant. Aldous Huxley, in Brave New World, envisioned a future not of tyrannical oppression, but of subtle sedation where people no longer fight for their dreams because they are numbed by comfort and distraction. Is this not already our reality? We drown ourselves in screens, entertainment, fleeting pleasures, not because we are fulfilled, but because we are avoiding the unbearable silence where our dreams once called to us. And so the hidden problem is revealed. It is not that dreams vanish by accident, but that we are trained philosophically and socially to silence them. We learn to trade them for survival, for approval, for safety, and we call it maturity. But what is maturity if it means becoming a stranger to the most alive part of yourself? There is a deeper danger here. For when the dream dies, something inside you does not simply disappear, it mutates. It becomes bitterness, resentment, quiet envy of those who dared where you did not. It seeps into your relationships, your choices, your sense of identity. Jung warned that what we repress does not vanish. It festers in the shadow, shaping us unconsciously. And so, the abandoned dream does not leave, it haunts. This haunting explains why so many feel a vague dissatisfaction that cannot be cured by success, money, or love. The problem is not external, it is the ghost of a dream unfulfilled, whispering through the cracks of your daily life. And this is the root. The quiet death of your dreams is not just about the loss of possibility, is about the loss of self. Because dreams are not separate from you. They are you in potential. To abandon them is to amputate a part of your being. The question then is terrifying. If we are shaped by our dreams, then who do we become when they die? And if this is true for the individual, what happens when entire societies abandon dreaming? What new shadows begin to haunt us all? The answer lies not in theory, but in consequence. And those consequences, though often invisible, shape every corner of our existence. The unseen consequences, when a dream dies, it rarely announces itself. No funeral, no ceremony, no grieving. Instead, it leaves behind traces, fragments, that infiltrate your choices and moods, shaping your life in ways so subtle you might never notice. And yet, these consequences are everywhere woven into your personal struggles, reflected in society at large, hidden in the architecture of the world you inhabit. The most immediate consequence is numbness, not the kind that paralyzes in pain, but the softer, more deceptive kind of muted existence. You go through your routines, check your boxes, meet expectations. Outwardly, everything seems intact, but inside, a flatness grows. Meals taste duller. Conversations feel scripted. The days blur together, interchangeable. This is not depression in the clinical sense, though it can lead there. It is something quieter, the erosion of meaning. Viktor Frankl warned that when life loses meaning, suffering becomes unbearable. The person who suffers with purpose can endure nearly anything, but the person who suffers without purpose crumbles. The quiet death of dreams creates precisely this condition, life without a why. And when there is no why, even the smallest how feels impossible. But numbness is only the beginning. The next consequence is substitution. When the dream dies, the hunger it once fed does not vanish. It seeks replacement. And so, we begin to fill the void with lesser things. Some turn to material consumption, buying endlessly, chasing the next possession as though it might restore the lost fire. Others turn to status titles, promotions, external validation. Still others numb themselves with entertainment, substances, distractions. All are attempts to replicate the intensity of meaning once given freely by a dream. But substitutes never satisfy. They are like drinking salt water. Each sip quenches for a moment, but deepens the thirst. This is why even the successful often feel hollow. They have climbed ladders only to discover they were leaning against the wrong wall. Another unseen consequence is resentment. You may not notice it at first, but look closer. How do you feel when you encounter someone who still burns with passion? Does their fire inspire you, or does it irritate you? Many, secretly, cannot stand to witness in others what they have lost in themselves. They scoff, roll their eyes, dismiss dreamers as naive or reckless. But beneath the cynicism lies envy. For in their fire, you glimpse your own extinguished flame. And then there is conformity. When you abandon your dream, you don't simply float in a vacuum, you are swept into the current of what everyone else is doing. You mimic, copy, absorb. You dress as others dress, want as others want, live as others live. This conformity is subtle. It hides under the name of normal, but it robs life of uniqueness. And over time, society becomes a collection of copies, each reinforcing the other's mediocrity. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre described this condition as bad faith, living in denial of one's true freedom and responsibility. Pretending to be less than one is. It is easier to blame circumstance, society, reality, than to confront the fact that you surrendered your dream. But bad faith is corrosive. It eats away at authenticity until even you no longer know who you are. On a societal level, the consequences magnify. A people who no longer dream are easy to govern, easy to sell to, easy to pacify. Innovation declines because true creativity requires audacity, not conformity. Politics devolves into spectacle because no one imagines alternatives worth fighting for. Culture stagnates because art loses its connection to raw vision and becomes instead mere entertainment. Look around and you will see this decay. You will see workplaces filled with individuals who once dreamed of creating, exploring, contributing, but who now shuffle papers, stare at screens, counting hours until the weekend. You will see relationships built not on passion or growth, but on shared convenience and routine. You will see communities that once carried vision now reduced to consumers of trends. And the most haunting consequence, the quiet death of dreams perpetuates itself across generations. A parent who abandons their own dream unconsciously passes down this burial to their children. They say, be realistic. They say, don't aim too high. They are not cruel. They are trying to protect. But protection at the cost of possibility breeds generations of smaller lives. Carl Jung's observation returns here like an echo. The unlived life of the parent becomes the heaviest weight upon the child. Consider the neurological implications too. Neuroscience shows that the brain thrives on novelty, challenge, and vision. Dreams, in their pursuit, activate the dopaminergic systems that drive motivation, learning, and resilience. When those systems lie dormant, when no vision ignites them, the brain itself atrophies into passivity. It is not only the spirit that dulls, but the very wiring of the mind. This is why the quiet death of dreams feels so insidious, does not appear as catastrophe, but as slow decay. And slow decay is harder to notice, harder to resist. You do not wake up one day suddenly stripped of meaning. You lose it gradually until the absence feels normal, until numbness feels like life itself. And perhaps this is the greatest danger of all. Not that your dream dies, but that you forget it ever lived. For as long as you remember it, you carry the ache, the longing, the possibility of rekindling it. But once forgotten, once rewritten as childish fantasy or impossible wish, it is gone, and you remain a self-amputated, unaware of the wound. Now ask yourself, how many of your daily struggles, your irritations, your quiet discontent, are not about external problems at all but about this hidden absence? Could it be that the source of your restlessness is not your job, your relationship, your routine, but the ghost of a dream you no longer acknowledge? And if that is true, if dreams, when silenced, corrupt both the individual and the collective, then we face a sobering truth. The quiet death of dreams is not a private tragedy. It is a civilizational crisis. The future itself depends on those willing to rebel against this death, to resist the lull of numbness, to reclaim what was quietly taken. But rebellion is not easy. It requires confronting fear, risking ridicule, dismantling comfort. It requires defiance not just against society, but against the self that has learned to settle. And yet without rebellion, what is left but the grey march toward oblivion? The rebellion, how to break free rebellion, begins in silence. Not the silence of resignation, but the silence of recognition. The moment you pause, strip away distractions, and admit to yourself, I have abandoned something essential. That admission alone is an act of defiance. For the world trains you to forget, to dismiss, to adapt, to remember, clearly, fiercely, unapologetically is already rebellion. But remembrance is not enough. The rebellion against the quiet death of your dreams requires something deeper, the courage to resurrect. The first step is confronting fear. Fear is the executioner of dreams. Fear of failure, fear of ridicule, fear of the unknown. Yet history reveals a strange truth. Every great dreamer was afraid, and still they acted. Consider Galileo, who risked the wrath of an entire church to say the earth was not the center of the universe. Or Rosa Parks, who risked her safety by refusing to surrender a bus seat. Or even Van Gogh, who, despite rejection and poverty, painted relentlessly until his death. None of them were fearless. They simply refused to let fear dictate the terms of their existence. Ask yourself, what if fear is not a signal to stop, but a compass pointing toward the very thing worth doing? What if the trembling in your chest is not a warning, but proof that you stand at the doorway of something alive? The second step is dismantling the lie of someday. Someday is the most seductive prison ever built. It allows you to keep the dream alive without ever confronting it. Someday I'll write that book. Someday I'll start that business. Someday I'll travel, create, risk. But someday is a mirage. It does not exist. There is only now, and now, and now. Jean-Paul Sartre declared, "Man is condemned to be free." What he meant is that every moment forces a choice. To delay is itself a choice to abandon. To postpone is to bury your dream beneath the illusion of infinite time. The rebellion, then, is to act now, however small the step, however imperfect. To write a single page, to take a single risk, to make the dream tangible, even in fragment. The third step is detaching from approval. One of the most subtle killers of dreams is the craving for validation. You want others to applaud, to understand, to approve. But rebellion means releasing yourself from this need. Nietzsche spoke of becoming the Mensch, the one who creates values rather than borrowing them. To break free, you must risk being misunderstood, even ridiculed. For the path of the dreamer is always lonely before it is celebrated. Ask yourself, would you still pursue your dream if no one ever praised you for it? If the answer is no, then it is not truly your dream, it is a performance for others. Rebellion demands you find the dream that burns even in solitude. The fourth step is embracing sacrifice. Every resurrection has a cost. Time, comfort, certainty, security, these must be surrendered. The world tells you that safety is the highest good, but safety is the graveyard of possibility. Consider Viktor Frankl again. In the camps, those who lived without dreams of a future, without meaning, collapsed. Survival required risk, courage, faith in something beyond the present. In the same way, your dream will demand that you risk the comfort of routine. It will demand you exchange certainty for possibility. But sacrifice is not loss, it is transformation. The hours you give to your dream are not hours stolen from life. They are hours that become life itself. The fifth step is reclaiming imagination. As children, imagination was effortless. As adults, we starve it. Rebellion means feeding it again. Read widely, create freely, wander without destination. Let yourself dream recklessly. For imagination is the soil in which dreams take root. Aldous Huxley warned of societies that numb imagination with endless distractions. The rebel refuses sedation. The rebel cultivates wonder, even when the world calls it useless. And finally, the sixth step is persistence. Dreams do not die only because they are abandoned. They die because they are tested. You will face failure, ridicule, fatigue. This is inevitable. But persistence is rebellion's sharpest weapon. Thomas Edison famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Imagine if he had stopped at attempt number 9,999. The rebellion is not a single act, but a rhythm. Fall, rise, repeat at its core. Rebellion is not about defying society. It is about defying the smaller self within you that has grown accustomed to settling. The self that whispers, "It's too late." the self that says, "You can't." Every act of persistence, every small victory, is a battle won against this inner tyrant. And do not mistake rebellion for grandeur. It does not always mean quitting your job tomorrow or burning bridges. Sometimes rebellion is quiet, steady, stubborn. Sometimes it is writing at midnight when no one notices. Sometimes it is practicing your craft for years before recognition arrives. Sometimes it is holding onto your vision with such ferocity that no rejection can pry it from your hands. Rebellion is not about instant. Triumph it is about refusing the quiet death. And here lies the paradox. The very act of pursuing your dream, regardless of outcome, restores life to your being. Whether you succeed in the world's eyes matters less than whether you dared to live authentically. Nietzsche's last man seeks comfort and safety. The dreamer, the rebel, seeks intensity life fully lived, even at the cost of risk. Ask yourself, what is the greater tragedy, to fail at a dream or to never attempt it? Which regret will haunt you more, the scars of trying or the emptiness of surrender? The rebellion is not easy. It demands courage, sacrifice, persistence. But the alternative, the quiet decay, the numbness, the ghost of unlived possibilities, far more terrifying. And so the question becomes, will you join the rebellion? Will you reclaim what was buried? Will you defy not only the world, but your own resignation? For if you do, something extraordinary happens. The world itself begins to shift. A single dreamer ignites others. One spark becomes a fire. One rebellion becomes a revolution. And from that revolution, the very fabric of humanity is rewoven. But to ignite that fire, you must arrive at the deepest realization of all the truth that transforms not only how you see your dream, but how you see life itself. The ultimate truth, the final, most powerful realization. We have walked through silence, through fear, through decay and rebellion. But what lies at the end of this path? What realization burns so deeply that it can shatter the illusion, resurrect the dream, and reshape existence itself? It is this: your dream was never merely about you. The greatest deception of modern life is the belief that your dreams are private indulgences, personal fantasies meant only for your satisfaction, that to pursue them is selfish, impractical, naive. But the truth, ancient, powerful, and easily forgotten, is that your dream is not yours alone. It belongs to the world. Consider this: every invention, every work of art, every philosophy, every revolution began as a dream in one mind. A mind that could have surrendered, a mind that could have chosen conformity. If Martin Luther King Jr. had believed his dream was just personal, would civil rights have shifted? If Nikola Tesla had silenced his visions of energy and invention, would the world be illuminated as it is? If Beethoven, deaf and broken, had abandoned his symphonies, would generations have felt the surge of his music? Your dream is not a private luxury, it is a responsibility. It is the thread that weaves you into the fabric of humanity. To betray it is not merely to betray yourself, but to rob the world of what only you could have given. This is the ultimate truth. Dreams are not about possession, they are about transmission. And here lies the paradox. You've spent years believing that your dream is for your own fulfillment, your own glory. But the deeper you pursue it, the more you realize was never about you. It was about those who would be touched, moved, awakened by what you dared to bring into existence. Think of it like fire. A flame does not burn only for itself. Its nature is to spread, to illuminate, to warm. Your dream is fire. Keep it hidden, and it withers. Release it, and it ignites the world. This realization transforms everything. Suddenly, fear loses power. Because when it is not just about you, the stakes are higher than ridicule or failure. If you surrender your dream, you are not merely saving yourself from risk, you are denying others the light only you could bring. And suddenly, sacrifice feels different. The hours, the struggle, the sleepless nights, these are no longer burdens, but offerings. You are carrying your dream like a torch through the darkness, not only for your own path, but for those who follow. Even death itself takes on a new meaning. For while your body may pass, the dream, if pursued, if embodied, lives on in the hearts it touched. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that everything is fleeting, yet action in accordance with one's nature leaves an imprint. Your dream is your nature. To live it is to carve eternity out of mortality. This is why the quiet death of dreams is so catastrophic. It is not only a personal tragedy, but a theft from the world. The unwritten book, the unsung song, the unbuilt invention, the unspoken truth are losses we will never recover. The world is dimmer, not because life is cruel, but because too many chose silence. But here too lies hope. For no matter how long your dream has been buried, no matter how deeply you have silenced it, it can still be revived. A dream does not age. It waits. Patiently, silently, like a seed under snow. The moment you choose to act, it stirs again, as alive as the day it was first born. And perhaps this is the deepest beauty of the ultimate truth. It is never too late. The rebellion, then, is not a dramatic act of defiance against the world, but a quiet devotion to this responsibility, to rise each day and ask, what is the dream that burns in me, and how can I serve it today? Some will say, but I am ordinary. My dream is small. To this, remember, there are no small dreams. There are only silenced ones. A teacher's dream to ignite curiosity in a single child may ripple through generations. A painter's vision on a forgotten canvas may one day awaken someone's soul. A whispered story, a song sung to no crowd, a kindness carried out of vision, these too are dreams, and their echoes outlast us. The ultimate truth frees you from the tyranny of comparison. You no longer measure your dream against another's, no longer ask if it is grand enough, profitable enough, admired enough. You understand now, it is not about size. It is about authenticity. A dream true to your essence carries infinite weight, because it is irreplaceable. And so the final question remains, not a question of theory, but of choice. Will you let your dream live again? Will you take it out of the grave where fear and conformity buried it, and let it breathe? Will you bear the responsibility of carrying it into the world, not for your sake alone, but for all who unknowingly wait for it? For here is the final, haunting paradox. If you abandon your dream, you will never escape it. It will haunt you as absence, as numbness, as regret. But if you pursue it, heaven, if you stumble, even if you fail, you will already have one. Because to live your dream, to give it breath, is to live fully. The quiet death of dreams is not inevitable. It is a choice. And the ultimate truth is this: the world does not need your conformity. It needs your fire. So let the rebellion begin. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now the question is no longer, what if I fail? The question is, what if I don't?